Welcome back to another Leagues 4 video. It's been a few days since launch and I'm sure everybody is absolutely grinding. So today we're going to be talking about one of the in-game relic tiers that is probably one of the harder and more competitive choices. This is the tier 7 relics, which you unlock when you have 15,000 league points. And our three options are Berserker, Soul Stealer, and Weapon Master. And I think this tier specifically has a lot of synergy both between regions and between what combat relic you initially chose. Like for myself personally, I took the Mage Relic, which basically makes this tier a two-man race between Berserker and Soul Stealer. Because there's really no reason for me to have Weapon Master because all of these special attack weapons I have access to, well really just the Mage special attack weapons in general just aren't very good. But before we go any further, here are the three relics specifically. Berserker has damage dealt is increased by 0.4% for every hit point you have missing. And then to go along with that, you are guaranteed to hit your max hit on an NPC that is at full health. So when you're doing things like Slayer, every time you attack the first monster when it's full health, you hit whatever your max hit is at that time, and the lower your HP is, the higher that max hit will be. This one goes hand in hand very well with a few different regions, and with some very hard-hitting weapons. Next up, you have Soul Stealer, which gives the player's minimum hit an increase of 10% of your max hit. So rather than your damage roll being 0 to 50, it would be increased to 5 to 50. But one thing I do want to really emphasize that we didn't know until people actually started selecting this, well maybe a few people know, but I know there was definitely some confusion around this. This relic does not change the fact that you still can hit zeros. There is still a 0 hit roll chance, but then the alternative where if you would have hit like a 1 or a 2 is now guaranteed to be a 5. But then upon a successful hit, there is a 50% chance that you restore both your HP and your prayer points by 10% of the damage dealt. So basic math, if you hit a 50, you would get 5 HP and prayer back if it did proc. This restoration effect does exclude multi-target attacks though, and special attacks. And then lastly, we have the Weapon Master, and this is special attacks will always be a guaranteed hit, and the minimum damage dealt is increased from 0 to 20% of the player's max hit. Your spec bar is then restored by 30% every 30 seconds, and the Light Bearer makes this 30% every 15 seconds. And then the last addition on the Weapon Master for this league is if players do not have enough special attack energy, you can continue to perform special attacks by siphoning 25 of your HP for each additional one. So if you're 99 HP and using something like a Bando's Godsword, you would do the first 2 initial special attacks for your entire spec bar, and then you would be able to do an additional 3 specs by taking away 75 of your 99 HP. But now that we know all 3 of the relics in this tier, let's jump into them a little bit deeper. First up, I think Weapon Master is incredibly strong depending on the regions and the weapons you have access to. I think this relic paired in tandem with something like an ACB or a ZCB has the ability to inflict an outrageous amount of damage with like ruby bolts. It's also very good with melee in a variety of regions just due to the sheer amount of spec weapons that melee does have. I think this one's a great relic depending on what your gear setup actually entails, what weapons you are using. When it comes to Soul Stealer, I think this one's just kind of the overall best when it comes to variety. I think this one you can mix and match with a ton of different styles and a ton of different regions. I think it'll be a toss-up between Soul Stealer and Berserker for being the most picked. Granted, I could be entirely wrong on that fact. But this relic just seems like the perfect middle ground if you just kind of like to casually play. It's kind of just the best of both worlds. You get a little bit more DPS, you don't have to sweat or try any harder, do any crazy mechanics, and you don't have to sit any crazy risky low HP like you would with Berserker. I think this one's perfect for the casual player, or if you are a person who's doing some in-game PvM content that you don't have a lot of experience with in the main game. But then lastly, we have Berserker, and I think this one's just the all-out DPS relic of the entire bunch. After watching a few people who have selected this relic, the first hit max hit seems outrageously strong. It looks like it makes Slayer an absolute breeze, and it dramatically helps with some of the PvM where your current combat style isn't usually the best combat style in the main game. Doing bosses that have incredibly high defense, you get a great initial chunk of damage right out of the gate. I think this relic would also look absolutely insane with something like a full DH set. I'm sure there is some clips, I have not seen anybody using it just yet, but I can't imagine some of the damage splats that are going to come from sitting very low HP with a set effect that already does more damage when you're low HP. Combine that with the fact that if the NPC is full health, you are guaranteed to hit your max hit right out of the gate every time. Obviously, the one drawback of this relic is the fact that in order to get the best use out of it, you are going to have to camp pretty low HP and at times be decently risky. It's not actually a requirement, like you don't have to sit below a certain threshold, but when you get 0.4% per HP, the lower the better. And I think this relic individually has outrageous synergy with one of the tier 8 relics being the Undying Retribution, because apart from having a 3-minute cooldown, this relic in the final tier basically allows you to avoid death by suicide bombing whatever you're fighting. Whenever you would die, the relic activates and fully heals your HP and prayer, and then deals a hit up to 200% of your prayer level. It goes perfectly hand in hand with Berserk, where as long as you're not within that 3-minute cooldown, you have the ability to sit outrageously low HP to take the maximum advantage of your HP missing damage boost. And then if you do happen to screw up or just get hit a little harder than you expected, you would regain all of your HP and prayer and then just absolutely smash whatever it was you were fighting. Then at that point you could just sit a little higher HP than you were prior, wait for the cooldown to reset, and then just repeat that process over and over again. And I think out of the last two tiers and all of the options, those two have the best synergy in combination with each other. And I think another thing to know when it comes to Berserker as a potential drawback is if you are doing some team content, unless you're intentionally making everybody wait for you to do the first hit to every boss, you would miss out on that initial guaranteed max hit. Definitely doable, but at times could get a little bit annoying. But that's my full analysis on the tier 7 relics. Personally, I'm currently deciding between picking either Berserker or Soul Stealer. At this point, I'm only a few thousand points away, and I think I might just watch a few streamers who are currently using them to make my final decision. Either way, I hope you guys enjoyed this video or found it helpful. Hopefully the start of League 4 is going very well for you. If you guys did enjoy, consider dropping a like, and I will catch you in the next one.